Hello, Sarah. Well, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for sharing your experience, your project with the rest of our customers. I'm sure it'll be really helpful for them.
My pleasure.
Yeah, can you tell us about your project from the point when it was just a dream?
Yeah, my husband and I have been thinking for some time about an extension to our property. We had a living room where there was one relatively small window at the front of the house, which doesn't face the sun for the majority of the day. It comes in the morning and it's beautiful, but then kind of by lunchtime and the afternoon, the sun's moved round. So it was a little bit gloomy. And we spent a lot of time sat in the conservatory that was on the back of our house, but it was aging. And obviously they're really hot in the summer and really cold in the winter. And so we thought actually we would really love to have some space that we could use all year round at the back of the house where we get a lot of sun and also a lot of light. So we went on a little bit of a journey. We had some delays in starting the project because of the pandemic, but we got there eventually, and we ended up making an extension across the whole of the back of the property to give us this really beautiful open plan living and dining space. And what was the back wall is now the sort of, you can see here behind me, the kitchen. Back wall used to be the level with that, but now it's open. So we've got a really social space with lots of light, really lovely views onto the garden. I say all of the things that we set out, having lived in the house for the best part of 10 years before we eventually did it.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. And so you completed your extension and this beautiful space. And what were the issues that you're concerned about that caused you to look at getting an electric roof lantern blind?
Yeah, so obviously, as mentioned, we wanted to let as much light into the space as possible. We've got big bifold doors and a window on one side, but it felt like we would miss an opportunity if we didn't pop a lantern into the roof. But with that, obviously, was the concern about how much light was going to come in, whether it was going to be hot, whether it was going to be drafty, whether we were going to be able to see when the sun comes round. And so we actually lived with the roof lantern probably for around 6 months before we made a decision about what we actually wanted to do. Our electrician had had the foresight to put actually the electric socket up in the roof lantern in case we wanted to do something with a blind, but we still weren't sure whether to go with an electric blind or whether to go with something else. But really we were thinking about heat, fading of our brand new flooring, fading of the furniture that was going to be positioned effectively underneath it. Yeah, and really just those environmental factors.
Yes, well, it sounds like you had a fantastic electrician. But what options did you look at?
We looked at a few options. So obviously the dream was an electric blind, so we didn't have to mess around with poles and things. In our conservatory, we had the concertina blinds that were on the strings effectively, and you had to use a pole to move them across. And they're a bit clunky. They gather dust, the flies get behind them. So we did have a look at those. They were a cheaper option. We also looked at some other blinds where they sort of would have rolled across, but I say with the guide wires and things like that, it really, I think, would have ruined the look of the lantern. So we came to WindowTreat because you provide the runners and there's just the seamless transition of the blind across the space. So we spoke to Chris about what that might look like for our space.
And how was that journey with Chris, the experience? I mean, he's our electric roof lantern blind specialist.
Yeah, it was good. So I had a consultation via Zoom with Chris, which I think all of us are very used to now. And he talked me through the specifications of the blinds and how it might work in the space. I think I'd given him some details in advance of the call about the sort of type of lantern that we had. I might have sent him even some photos. So he had an idea already of what we were looking at and had tailored to some extent as far as he could the presentation that he shared with me in that consultation. Took me through the different fabric types and what that would mean, because whilst we wanted to install a blind, we also didn't want to lose the light. So it sounds counterintuitive to want to put a blind up, but still to have the light coming through. So the fabric choices that Chris explained were really appealing, simply because it would continue to let light through, but would cut down on the amount of radiation effectively that would fade furniture and flooring, and also would help to control the heat as well, both coming in and potentially going out once we move a little bit more into the winter. So gave me a couple of options in terms of the materials, and then I let him know which ones I would like samples of, and he sent those to me in the post.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. And then you made that choice, to that leap of faith, to go with WindowTreat. How did the installation go?
Yeah, it was great. Your installers arrived promptly when they said they would do. I think I even had a text message to let me know that they were on the way. They were incredibly considerate when they were working in the space. We moved a couple of bits and pieces just so that it was easy for them. But yeah, they were great. They came in, they got on with the job. They were very neat and tidy. And yeah, overall, a really good experience with them.
Yeah, we're lucky to have them. And you mentioned the heat, the glare, fading of furnishings. Has the electric roof lantern blind, the Venus blind, delivered on those?
Yeah, I mean, we're coming into sort of the autumn now, so perhaps not the height of summer, but we have still had a couple of warm and sunny days. And the other day I was sat in the dining room, which is where I am now, but I was the other side of the table, and the sun comes in directly from behind me, and it was in my eyes. So I clicked the switch and the roof lantern blind closed, and we still had light, but I no longer needed a pair of sunglasses or a sun hat to sit at my dining table.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. I guess the most important question, the million-dollar question, is: would you recommend WindowTreat to families and friends?
Definitely. I said it was a really good experience. I'm really pleased with the finished look. I was a little bit concerned, couldn't really picture how it would sit in the space. I didn't want to lose a lot of the sort of, I guess, light around the edges. But yeah, Chris was really great. He came out when he did the measuring, helped us to understand what the profile of the runners and things would look like. And yeah, I think it really finishes our space off nicely.
That's music to my ears.